so far?
Not yet.
Okay, I think everyone who, I know Hillary was gonna be out. But I think everyone else.
I think Michael was going on,
Oh, on the Zoom, he did want the Zoom link, didn't he? Yeah,
He said he would join late though, I think.
Yeah, he said he
Ah,
would. join
okay.
late.
all righty, so then why don't we get started? Do we have anything for the chair's report?
That's you.
I was thinking it was the staff report. Do I have anything for the chair's report? I do not have anything to report, other than, yeah, we have our next meeting on the 14th. The weeks are a little bit off, so.
Yeah.
The 14th and then the 11th of December was the next one, I think.
November and December were both the second Monday.
Okay,
So we're back on schedule. This one,
so then
the
December.
last
will be the
month was
12th.
off schedule because of the holiday. This month was off schedule because Planning Commission asked us to switch. But we are back on the second Monday of the month for November and December. For consistency's sake, so everyone knows when we're meeting, right?
So then it'll be December 12th. Okay. And then we have, Simon has been officially appointed
Right?
as a full-fledged member of the Health Advisory Committee. So,
thank you.
Well, he will be. He will be.
At Thursday unless there's.
It'll be
no,
official.
We'll have to vote on it.
unless you mess up between now and then.
Okay, I'll do my best
Unless there's some
to,
scandal, that's right, look at the mainline times.
Careful what you say.
Sure, you weren't the cover story.
Eddie, don't forget, turn your mic on.
I'm just talking, this, we don't have to record that.
It's off the record.
So then we will still have an alternate.
Yes, and so Jody will let me know when the nominating committee for those, they'll advertise it. She'll let me know when that's all happening. I asked her about that, so she'll let me know when.
I would highly recommend that we seek to find people who are not white and who represent other ethnicities or races in our community.
Yeah, would be, they have to apply.
Well, but we can do something to help get people to apply.
Yeah.
I mean,
I was definitely thinking that when the advertisement is out, I would send it to all of you. And that way, if you have people that maybe you could recommend to the board that you know that might be really good for this, that would be awesome. Because I think word of mouth is, you know, who the caliber of people in your circles, so we need another fine person like the rest of you. That would be for sure. I have a bunch of things for staff report. Sheree, do you have anything about the pools or anything that's going on in your world?
No, all of the pools are closed for the most part. I think maybe one or two are still open. We've been getting a lot of rat complaints, but that's probably just because of the construction that's taking place all up and down Lancaster. People are concerned that they're outside, they see them all the time, and then they're gonna come in when the weather breaks. So mostly I've just been sending out mass letters saying everybody needs to work together to do extermination measures, and that's been as productive as it can be. But outside of that, there isn't much I can do. That's like a homeowner issue as far as I've been told.
Yeah, I understand. That's interesting.
Mhm.
Is it more on the eastern side of the township than the western side?
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense. I grew up in Philadelphia, and when I would be going down to the L, I would always see rats. They're like the size of a house cat.
Mhm.
And you just get used to it.
Oh, really? I don't know
I mean,
about that.
they don't ever come near you. They run away. They're afraid of you, but they're big and fat. So anyway, all right.
All
Thank
right.
you, Sheree. So I have a bunch of things because you guys gave me a bunch of homework last time, only a couple weeks ago.
Also.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Eddie reminded me. Did I reviewed them? I didn't have any additions. Were there any additions?
Well, I saw them, it seems to indicate that I was here and I wasn't.
Oh, okay. We'll fix that.
So other than that, was there anything else?
We were here in spirit and love.
I was thinking. of
We
you
could feel your
the whole
presence.
time I was away.
Okay,
I'm
can I
sure.
have a motion to approve the minutes from the September meeting?
So moved.
so moved.
Okay, second?
Second.
Okay, and everybody in favor of approving? Yep, okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you.
I should have a point of order. Robert's rules of order. If you,
Turn that mic
Button
on
the mic that-
and
yep,
leave
there
it
you go.
pointed the other way because that's the way it picks up best.
If you are not here for the meeting,
can you actually vote to approve the minutes?
Probably
can't.
not.
Okay, all
Very
right,
sad.
thanks. I mean, I've chaired meetings for years, but I never really thought about it.
So I got a bunch of homework last time, so I followed up on all those things. So I was asked about, is the school district offering flu shots to their students or anything? They are offering them to faculty and students and the students' families. And they might open it to the public, but they're not sure. And it's at the end of this month on the 28th. So they'll, put it out if it's going to be open to the public. I gave you a flyer. I passed those around for Bethel here in Ardmore. They're doing free flu vaccinations and for COVID boosters, all different dates throughout the month of October. I asked about the Lower Merion School District students and being updated on vaccine and what percentages and things like that. So the deadline that the state had set for them was September 30th. I don't know if that got extended. But so they wouldn't know until after that date. They're going to compile the data of how many students are, fully up to date on all of their vaccines. But there's also a problem that they're short 8 nurses right now in the school district, which is pretty significant and pretty scary. And really tiring for the nurses they do have, right? So they have 8 nurses that they're short. So when that comes, they'll give it to me, but they don't know when that'll come because they're really busy for there, so.
What was the nursing status before the pandemic in terms of vacancies?
I have no idea.
I mean, just was comparing it to baseline.
Yeah, I think it's down significantly. I have never heard of a big shortage before that email that I got. I spoke to Superintendent McGrath about the fentanyl test strips because Hillary had asked about that and then everyone was curious. And he was going to look into it and get back to me and let me know his thought process on it. I haven't heard from him on that yet, but he will let me know. He'll look into it. And then I asked Christina from Montgomery County Health Department about the wastewater surveillance, and they are implementing that, so that's good news. They just finished the RFP process, so that's a request for proposals for whoever's going to do that for them. But right now they're going to be sticking with COVID. They have talked about internally about adding other testing to it, but they're not doing that right now. They're just going to start with this. But if something came up, significant, they could pivot to do that, but they're not planning on doing it at this moment. So they haven't started doing it yet. They're just getting started with whatever company they're going to be picking. And I talked to Narberth Ambulance because I had another meeting with them about something else. And Pat, who was here, who spoke on the overdoses and things, they are still willing to do the Narcan training. And my request was going to check with the county to see if the county will supply us the Narcan for the training so we can give it out to the people who participate in their training. And he will let me know when he hears back from them on whether or not they can do that, because that would be a big thing to do. So that would be awesome. We have some PSAs that we're going to work on here and talking about COVID vaccines and maybe fentanyl. So those are still in progress. And this Friday morning, there's a township employee flu vaccine clinic here. We do it every year here at the township. Mainline Health comes over and with their nurses, and we do that every year. I think last year we had about 180 employees get vaccinated for the flu, which was up at least 25% or more than previous years. So that was really good. So that's all I have.
Another question for Lauren. Are fentanyl test strips controversial? I've seen places where people are opposed because it's allegedly encouraging drug use.
Right.
But did you get any, was that something that Mike was looking at? Is that gonna, one of the, you want to know what his thought process was, but
Right.
I've seen news reports saying that it's controversial. I just happened to bring with me from yesterday's New York Times, a full page article.
Yeah.
In fight against drug deaths, fentanyl test strips prove divisive. And I looked it up for about Pennsylvania as well. In Pennsylvania, the CDC issued guidelines in 2021 that federal money may be used to buy test strips. But it's really up to the state, the county, everybody else as to whether you can do it. Pennsylvania House passed unanimously a bill in June because technically they're illegal as drug paraphernalia in Pennsylvania. It has not yet been taken up by the state Senate. So you kind of use it.
You mean the test strips?
Yeah, the test strips, because they were seen as drug paraphernalia, amazingly enough. So the feds have ruled, the CDC said, yeah, you can use them despite whatever guidelines. If it's federal money can be allocated, but other monies you have to decide what your rule is. So the state's halfway there, but whether the Senate will take it up before this session closes around the election, who knows? So in that sense, it's obviously controversial. There's also a question about how valid they are in the testing, because apparently for street pills, at least, the way it's laced technically into the pills, I didn't quite understand the mechanism. You may or may not find it in the fragment of the pill that you're testing before you use it, from the number of specs that are within the particular pill. So it seems like it's clearly worth doing, but controversial legally and a little bit on the technology.
Interesting.
Seems to me that that argument is the same argument against the use of clean needles. It's exactly the same argument, is that, you know.
Or condoms.
For condoms, that's what I.
You named the preventive measure to prevent an adverse outcome. The opposition is usually that's going to increase the behavior that is a result of that, or it causes the adverse outcome. And it doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Right.
People are not going to stop using drugs because they don't have fentanyl strips.
Yep.
I mean, or, you know, it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So, I mean, you could pass that on to superintendent if that's what he's looking into. But-
Yeah, I think he was going to look into what they were exactly, what the efficacy is in it, what the pros and cons, and get back to me with his thoughts on whether that was something the township he would endorse for the township to do.
I mean, it would seem to me the argument would also extend to providing Narcan
Yeah.
to drug
exactly.
users.
Yeah, why?
Why would
I
we-
can do whatever I want. Narcan will
And-
save me, so you're allegedly
And the
encouraging.
township distributes Narcan
Yeah,
Right.
it's a,
like
it's a,
water.
it's a health measure.
Yeah.
It's not a
That's what I
morality
was
issue.
just thinking. I wonder if it would be the similar kind of thing that you would get, you know, if you know you have a user in your home, you could get both, you know, just have it as an available option. But-
I was wondering what the Montgomery County Health Department's position is.
Yeah, that was my next question for.
I mean, that's
Lori.
really, because
Is that more
as I was
homework?
reading this, I
More
was
homework
thinking,
for
okay, how
Laura.
does that apply to us? I don't know, as a township, as we're not a health department, we're an advisory group. But if the county can be persuaded or talked with or already has a policy, then we can go with that fairly easily. So I think that's worth checking.
Right, I think I agree.
I did learn when I was talking with Pat from Narberth Ambulance that when they go on calls where there's an overdose and they give someone Narcan, whether they go to the hospital or not, sometimes they refuse. They leave another Narcan there for the families. So, because it's not unlikely for them to have to come back the same day. So they leave it there in case it happens again. So I was glad that they do that but they're getting it in droves from the county because they do stuff like that. And they're very expensive apparently.
It's scary they'd have to come back a second time, the same day.
Yeah.
That's a lot, that's really, truly alarming.
Would there be any benefit for the advisory council to recommend it or recommend that the township consider distributing it, or did you do that at the last meeting? I mean, is there some benefit to our, as a council, to recommend?
Pass a resolution.
Yeah, yeah.
Supporting.
I don't want to propose something unless there's a sense of the group.
Yeah,
Talking about test strips specifically?
Yes.
You could pass a resolution encouraging the use of fentanyl test strips as a health and safety measure.
I mean, we can wait till the superintendent comes back with his
yeah,
investigation.
I'll ask him again, make sure it didn't fall off of his radar about that.
Yeah, and it may be helpful too, because Lori and I were talking about I was gonna script something for the PSA and we were both gonna do it just because I think it's sometimes more interesting to have two people talking rather than one, but I think it'd be helpful to be able to mention it. And we were hoping to shoot it maybe next week, so.
Yeah. So that's all of I did all my homework and now I have more. That's all right. It's just basically sending emails or having conversations, so. We don't have any visitors yet online, so maybe they decided not to come, but we'll see.
So the current issues, Bill, was that your?
Yeah, so
mosquito
this
spray?
is, this
Okay.
is nothing to do with me as kind of the behavioral health person. This actually starts because we have a eventual retirement home in Cape Cod and we spend as much time there as we can in our little town in the middle of nowhere in the Cape. There is a huge company called Mosquito Squad. And every day in the beginning of the day, there are about 20 trucks and by late in the day, only 2. So about 18 of them are out in this pristine wilderness killing mosquitoes. So I started wondering, what's that about? Is that safe? What do we do here? So a little of internet from a little research with the internet, because I have no other source and this is not my specialty. My wife is also in the Barnes Horticultural Training Program, and keeps up with a lot of this, so she kind of promotes it for me. As I understand it from the internet, most of the sprays used are not organic, even though they'll have some organic ingredients. The sprays tend to be pretty good at killing not just mosquitoes, but bees and butterflies in particular. And when you kill bees and you have maybe 30% decline in the last 50 years in the number of birds in North America. So the insects die and then the birds, which already hit the light in the buildings and can't migrate easily, then eat the insects which have the poison and that kills off the birds. And, you know, all of the kinds of things and all of the gardening importance that we have in the township and the things we try to promote. This may well be something to take over to environmental much more than us, but I think it's a dual thing. Plus the runoff clearly can head into the streams and the waterways. So aquatic life can be damaged. There's a lot of research done on that. The EPA suggests integrated pest management where you start before you go to spraying. You work very strongly on preventive measures. You do a lot of training about standing water. Maybe there's programs where you go and check different places where there's historically standing water. You do PSAs, you do education at all the places we do education about the dangers lurking in your backyard and the ways of, you know, the old tires, whatever it may be, that's the standing water, so that you really do, you know, the early intervention and prevention, and then as needed, before disease eradication is where they then suggest getting into spraying. The organic spraying, which is not used by those bigger companies, although many of them will say organic, are plant-based essential oils, which are safer, but you can't use on flowering plants or when bees are active. So that seems to wipe out a lot because even the essential oils, if not as bad in the environment, still can kill other kinds of insects. So just, I guess my concern, and again, I don't know where this is our health issue, where this is environment, where it's a combined, is, you know, what do we do in the township? Do other towns or municipalities across the country, maybe California, have regulations? How much is it used in the township? Is it something that needs regulation? There's a whole nother thing as a pet owner, and a lot of us have dogs and cats. If they're out there and this stuff has been sprayed, like we had a next door neighbor and, you know, we really smelled, we realized that truck had sprayed everywhere. Was that coming on to us? Could our dog go over there? So it really goes into a lot of different areas. Food supply if you're growing vegetables in your garden. So that's a direct health effect. So I just wanted to bring it up as a topic, see if anyone knows of what benchmarks there may be elsewhere in the country. Is it something for us? Is it something for the environmental advisory? So that's just kind of my general question.
I have some. So I know that the county does spray here in the township. We haven't been notified that they've done any spraying, but they have traps all over and they will spray specifically in areas where they've seen disease. So if they find a dead bird and, you know, they've gotten disease in that particular area, but I haven't heard of any spraying this year. Have you, since you've worked here, Sheree? No, I haven't heard anything. But Mosquito Squad is here. I see their terrible lawn signs.
Yeah, I see this.
They're
And-
specifically mentioned as one of the companies that uses all the, I won't pronounce all the words I can't pronounce, but all of the chemicals that are bad.
Now,
Does the county tell, you know, we're coming to your neighborhood and spraying on Tuesday afternoon? Keep your
Yeah.
kids and cats and whatever away. They do notify neighbors.
I don't know how they notify people, but I know that they tell us when they're gonna be. And most of the time, it's in a park, like by a stream or something where they find. I noticed there were a lot of mosquitoes this year and we didn't have any rain, so I couldn't figure out where all the mosquitoes were coming from, but they like me a lot.
Well, you need to distinguish two different things. One is these programs where there's the traps detect mosquitoes that have West Nile virus in it, and then the township comes out and sprays in that area because, you know, it's a sentinel event in some ways.
Right.
That's probably least important than people who, you know, have spraying around the house. Now, I will admit that we did that around our house for, I don't know what the name of the company was. Didn't find it was that helpful. And they come around, they have this, you know, it's almost like a leaf blower and they kind of spray it around. Because next door, 2 doors over, they're not spraying. And so the mosquitoes, you know, don't hit a wall and then drop dead when they come over.
Next day.
So I don't really know how effective it is. You know, maybe it's effective at the time that they actually do it. And then if it rains that night, that's the end of it, you know? So, but it's a business, right? So if you were to put in regulations and restricting business, you're gonna have some issues. Not that I'm against regulation, but, you know, I wouldn't recommend that the township stop spraying when they detect, because they do a more comprehensive spraying.
The
And-
county comes in and does.
And
it.
they also
have the
probably look
trucks.
around for standing water and other things.
Yeah, PSAs on standing water and preventative measures starting in the spring would be a really good option.
That's what I thought.
and didn't Scott say that people could come and get the discs or whatever it is that you can put places there, that there is standing water?
Oh,
Isn't that?
I administer the mosquito dunks to people when they come and ask for it. I've been here since May and no one has asked.
But we
I've had
have it
people
if
complain,
want it.
yes,
So I mean, that
they
could
are
be a part of the
available.
Yeah,
PSA.
they probably don't
and
know
what is
about
it? I didn't even know.
It's
They're mosquito dunks, just like their little disc, they're organic, they're made from some
You can
plant.
put it in a pond or something.
Right. And
Or
it
if
just
you have a,
crystallizes
you
and
know,
it kills
plant
them.
sand that always gets full of water or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, interesting.
By the way, you don't have to have a lot of rain, you know, you don't have to much rain to have mosquitoes because you have the sewers. The sewers are full of, you know, the standing water there. If people are watering their lawns and filling their water baths, I mean, there's so many ways that water can collect even when it's not raining.
Yeah.
If it's raining like this, and of course, we're now in October, so it's not an issue, but in the summertime, if it rains like this for 2 days, it washes everything away. There are no mosquitoes when it's raining like this, and it takes a few days for the eggs to hatch, so the dryness isn't the reason that you would think that there shouldn't be any mosquitoes.
Laurie, I was wondering on your homework list.
Hit me with it.
Get out the pen. You're talking to the health department anyway on the fentanyl. It makes, I think that distinction is exactly correct. If the county is taking an area of risk, it could be a sentinel event, you got to do it. But that's very different than a homeowner choosing prophylactically, I just want to wipe out my yard for any mosquitoes because I want to sit in the backyard. Has the county Board of Health investigated this? Do they have a stance? Do they have benchmarks from other counties or locales in the country? You know, if this is something toxic in our environment for our pets and our children, even though it's a private company, there is a reason for regs. You know, are there such things? Have they considered? You know, just to
Okay.
see what the information is.
Are-
Residential spraying.
Are they licensed in the township to do that? Is there
They would have
a
a business
a
license.
business license? But they must have a license to use a pesticide of some sort, no?
That's probably through, I would think that's through the health department, but I don't really know. I know that our Parks and Rec people have to get some kind of a license to spray pesticides. They have to
I think
take.
it's an EPA license.
I think you're right,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's a federal. it's a very long, something, FIFRA, Federal Insecticide, Rodenticide, something or other,
Fungicide.
fungicide, yeah.
Act.
Yeah, the act that governs use of those things.
I've seen the certificates come through in the mail and had to give them the recreation. That's the only reason I know.
Liaison with the environmental committee that we could ask if it's on their radar.
We have a staff member
Okay.
on there. We
Who
can
would know?
ask her.
Sustainability director is the staff to the EAC, so Paloma
Okay.
could do that.
Because the other thing that was on your email, Lori, which we don't necessarily need to discuss as an item tonight, but I wasn't aware about this clearing of land and that was also an issue of concern. I don't personally see that as a big health issue, but I guess some township residents might. I guess it's maybe associated with the school. Is that the
Yeah.
plan?
don't
I
remember what
think
she said.
They're gonna build ball fields, right? Is that right?
Yeah, it's been an ongoing issue.
Yeah.
It's,
Can't remember. Where is it? It's the corner.
Sort of the Stoneleigh, the fields, the playing fields, it has a long history of what.
13.4 acres. The
Yeah.
Lower Main School District is gonna, in Villanova. The health impacts include Lyme and mosquito-borne illness due to loss of wildlife habitat. I guess because the wildlife would go into other areas. And then, so they're gonna bring the ticks and mosquitoes closer to us.
Yeah. I think they're trying to make it a health.
It's somewhat
Yeah.
attenuated. It's an environmental issue for
Yeah.
for
For sure.
sure. And the
Yeah.
original plans were to save the older growth trees, but and lots of times there've been conflicts between the township and the school district in terms of the school district's use of resources, but they have a need and interest in playing fields. And so there has to be some sort of compromise. That'll be the resolution, but
And where's this again? I'm sorry.
Villanova.
It's
Is
Villanova.
it the one on Spring Mill Road? Is that old estate that they've? No,
It's,
Stoneleigh?
yes, I think it's next to Stoneleigh.
It's,
not
yeah, it's
Stoneleigh
not
anymore.
Stoneleigh itself.
No. There was a proposal to take part of Stoneleigh, I think, but that got
Yeah,
That was
I
for
think
the
it's
middle
next to-
school,
it's not
but they made.
Further
Blacktop,
down, yeah.
What
It's
I-
adjacent to it.
What I do know is it's a Board of Commissioners decision.
Yeah, it's been.
I think it's-
percolating.
And they made the decision?
There's some things that are at work. Nothing has been disclosed, but
They're
they're,
moving in that direction.
yeah. I mean, it's sort of the interest of having playing fields because we're short of playing fields, but also a very strong interest in preserving trees. There's a very strong interest in that. So
Aside from the trees, if it's the property that I think, there's a lot of low-lying marshy water or right along the road there. So if they level it for playing fields and they actually do like active water management, it might be better in terms of mosquitoes. So,
And stormwater management.
yeah, if they actually do like the proactive, which they'll have to do, right? I mean, they'll have to have drainage and.
Stormwater is a big issue for our Board of Commissioners for sure, and they're always asking about that. When there's a property being built, they always want to know about stormwater. Because it is an issue here.
All righty, so I guess we'll figure out from the county what's gonna happen with okay, or if there is any information on the mosquitoes.
Well, I guess my thought was, when we get feedback from the county, then the next discussion is this something we further or the environmental group forwards, or is it some combination? I don't feel on this one that we would be suggesting anything in particular at the moment until we really get more data. And I think the county is the first data point that we see.
I feel like it's more of an environmental issue than a health. I mean, long-term, it could be a health issue, but for the immediate need, it might be more environmental. And they may already be talking about it.
my guess is
I've asked.
they are. I think they've been involved in it.
Or maybe that's the other question, that to reach out to them and say, is this something that is on their agenda?
Mhm.
And we would particularly be picking out mosquito spraying because of the approach they take from any other pest management. Because I mean, there's obviously that's very active throughout the township anyway, all the major companies that come and treat at people's homes or around the perimeter and that type of thing. the mosquito
Not in my
spraying.
area especially at all. I mean, you would know this more. I would think, I know when we have pest management, it's for those smaller Lower Merion rats. Not the big ones from the city. That tends to be traps.
Right.
Where people who do less innocuous spray within a house because it's in a house. So I think that that's supposedly less chemical
But
based.
there was someone coming around in our neighborhood asking about ants. They're spraying outside for ants too. So I would think it's similar.
That may be more
We
insecticide.
have somebody coming tomorrow to spray around.
So maybe this
Side of the
needs to
house for
broaden
telling
out to
that, yeah.
all pest management, not just.
They probably went
mosquitoes.
past their neighbors if
They
they
probably
wanted to
did.
spray too.
Having ant problems too, actually.
Yeah.
Recently. Maybe there's I've never had it. Have you had that problem before with ants?
No, we
We
haven't.
have, and we haven't this year. This year, we haven't.
There's big city ants as well.
Oh, okay. A foot long. Fat, and they're fat.
Big fat city ants coming in.
Size of
yeah.
a cat.
Oh my gosh. All right, moving right along. The PSA for ADHD, that kind of goes along with our previous topic, I guess. There was also a Wall Street Journal article this weekend too about all the drugs that were, pretty much everything is laced with fentanyl anymore, it seems like. So, yeah, so I guess add it to the list of PSAs is just,
So Lori, did you have that PSA ready to put up? Or you did for the last meeting?
I emailed it to everyone last
Oh,
month and
okay.
asked them to watch it. I don't know
Or
if
if people
anyone
get a
did.
chance to see that? Okay.
That was their homework.
Oh, okay. So that's one that I found on, I looked at a lot of PSAs and it was very hard to find anything that really adapted to this population. Although I'm now thinking from the fentanyl discussion, if we end up having a way to have fentanyl strips available, if when we adapt the PSA for the township, we can add, and you can get fentanyl strips at. So if we are able to provide them via, I assume, the county and permission to incorporate that in the PSA, and if there's any education we provide in the school district to present that as well.
Or maybe there's somewhere commercially that you can buy the strips online and we could put something
Right.
and people wanted to buy them, even if the county or the township wasn't willing to endorse that.
Did that PSA seem reasonable to folks? Is something to adapt?
Maybe someone with a little more dynamic when they're speaking.
So would we do that through the Lower Merion Television people?
Yep.
Okay.
Those are my people.
So is that on your homework list?
It actually is.
Sorry.
Yeah, and I was thinking for the mosquito ones for the spring, but we can work on the other PSAs after I hear back from the superintendent.
yeah, and I'm just thinking, again, sorry to circle back to the mosquito stuff, but Scott used to give us a report. He used to tell us if there was like West Nile or, whatever the county was finding. And then they also had done tick studies or something too, right? Where they were looking at, yeah, so I don't know, do you get any of those, Cherie, from the county? Do you know, are those active?
I don't get those because I didn't take my certification test yet. They still go to Scott. So
Okay.
I'll take my test next week and then they'll start coming to me.
Okay, okay, that's exciting. And then, the other thing that kind of went along with it was the township historically has had deer culling. Is that happening again?
Yeah, that happens every year, usually late winter, and the police do a report on it. We got a report late this year, but it's important, it also was something that was somewhat controversial a few years ago. That's kind of died down because I think people were like deer wasting disease and that's a health risk with deer out on the highway and so forth. So it's been pretty successful. I don't remember exactly what the numbers were, but we got a report probably a couple months ago from the superintendent.
And they do take the meat and the deer and they take them, have them processed and they take the meat to homeless shelters and the meat actually feeds people. So it's not just wasted and they just go to a dump somewhere.
Yeah.
It
it's
is actually,
useful.
yeah. So the state has specific people that they send in to do that.
And I've actually run into the crossbow guys walking around during the daytime. So apparently there's, I guess, guys that get
They-
license.
Well, they do it at night. I don't think they do it during the day.
The deer culling ones.
We ran into a guy during the day, yeah, over at
know.
Henry Lane.
Hmm.
Did he say he was with the state or was he just a guy?
No, I mean, he was hired to,
But
I don't know who by, but he was,
Henry Lane in the city?
No, Henry Lane and Gladwin.
Really?
Uh-huh. Mhm. You know, the, what is it, the, Arbor Henry Lane Foundation?
I didn't know that.
This was
It
maybe
was
2
on their
years ago,
private
but-
property.
Yeah. is
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, maybe it
It
was.
could have been,
Yeah,
yeah. But I think they usually do it at night.
the Bridal Wild Trail, maybe they had.
Yeah,
it.
and just not to alarm, they don't want, obviously, people around. They're skilled.
Yeah.
But. at night
I live
they
on the
do it
golf
really
course
quietly,
and they
yeah.
would always, put a letter in our mailbox.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you could hear it sometimes.
Yeah.
That would be a little concerning if you heard that at night, if you didn't know it was
Right, if
coming.
you didn't know, right? All righty. So yeah, Sherry, if you get those, it'd be good to share them with us on a regular basis. Just, I mean, it's probably dwindling at this point of the year, but, the Lyme and the West Nile reports would be good. Great. Anything under old business?
Just an update on the progress of the dental. And I talked with the chairman of dental medicine at Albert Einstein Medical Center. And I talked to the chair of the general practice residency and had meetings with them. And we opened up time from 1 to 3 on Wednesday afternoons for patients that could be delivered to the front door. We're going to do a trial with 4 patients to see how it works. They would show up on time. They'd have to be ambulatory and get in and out of the dental chair themselves. And I called just because I seem to have more response from Palm. I called, or I wrote an email to Palm and I got immediate response. They're going to look for 4 patients, but they don't have a van. I was told they had a van, but they don't have a van. They're putting in funding for a van.
There's a township van that we have limited.
Yeah, that's, okay. So from there, I went to Commissioner Kramer, who mentioned the township van to me some year or 2 years ago. So turns out they don't have a driver. Now, I'm retired. I'm thinking, I'm not sure what the hourly wage is, but it would be 1 trip on Wednesday.
You're hired.
Okay. So they don't have a driver. And then I wrote Eldernet, but I find Eldernet is, they seem to push back a little bit to me. I'm not sure why. He doesn't answer his emails and when I call him on his cell phone, but Laurie says they may have a new director now. So I'll
It's
try to
not
find out.
Brendan?
Brandon Trembata.
Yeah,
Is he still the
Yeah.
director?
he was the director for a long time.
Oh, he's no longer the director?
I don't know.
I don't know. Well, when I called, the voice sounds very hassled and, so anyway, but I don't mind if they could lend the van to Palm. I don't know what the politics are, so I asked him if he could lend the van, but I haven't even heard anything
The
from him.
van sits at the pump, so I will talk to Palm about drivers.
Okay, but maybe you want to drive.
No.
So there we are. So we're set up and, there's a woman that wouldn't mind driving because she needs dental work. And it's just, I didn't think I'd have this type, but she's very nice, Donna Palm. She said, don't get upset because you're doing what's right for people. So I feel much better. That's the update. And then Laurie told me that our real proposal for funding went to the state. So we'll see.
That was supported by Senator Capitalati.
Right,
Yeah,
I
Senator
submitted
Capital.
it to them
Yeah.
and they are submitting it
Yeah.
on our behalf to the state, so that's better than me submitting it.
And I told you that Dr. Oz asked me to do an advertisement for him. So,
For hydroxychloroquine, okay, for hydroxychloroquine, whatever.
that's it.
Thank you. Appreciate your persistence with this, Lou.
Really?
Pushing forward. It's good. It's a good cause. I think it's gonna happen.
What's the granting mechanism? From what funds?
From the
State.
ARP funds that the
ARP,
state
yeah.
received.
Okay.
So, you might find people who are elderly, who need dental work, who can still drive.
Well, that's,
You can get a
I went
ride.
through that and I got up in the middle of the night thinking that through because Palm has somebody, a woman that needs dental work and she doesn't mind driving, but you don't know how long the treatment is. You don't know what the disease is. And then you're going to straddle this person with a responsibility of driving every Wednesday. If she needs 8 months of work, that would be fine. But, so I want to get a legitimate, we're going to get 4 in the van. They have a minimum of 12, but they don't have a driver. So let's see if we could try 4. If it works out, I can accelerate that up to, 10 people, I'm sure, Wednesday afternoon. So we had the time, we had the the dentists that are coming back to specialize. And we, I think it's a go if we could just get a vehicle. I didn't realize that Lawberry Township was so destitute, so.
Could be things like, could be things like insurance. I mean, I could see a lot of, sort of bureaucratic snafus. It sounds like something that's doable.
Yeah,
Somebody with a lot of patience will probably have to stay on.
all right, so, something will come up. Thank you. Can I discuss new business?
Sure.
Okay. I guess everyone has read it in Inquirer, the FOP and Superintendent McGrath, what's happened?
I just
Yeah,
heard
but
tonight.
we were just
Okay.
reading about it.
So I'm asking, not, just making a proposal that we as a health advisory council, if everybody be in agreement, write him a letter of support for what he's done for us. I don't want to get in, I'm not suggesting politics. I'm not suggesting that a decision be made, but here's a guy that seems to be quite qualified, very intelligent, very he's been forthright with us. And he's come and met with us several times. And I found him full of information and I'd like to work with. Maybe we could just thank him for doing that. It's like a feel good, that's all.
I didn't see the Inquirer article.
Yeah,
What's
there's something
happened?
about
Today?
somebody didn't pass the examination. He didn't give equal grading of that examination to one officer. Is that the way it is, Laurie?
I'm
And
playing
they're saying-
special ed.
Excuse me?
There's a backstory.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And as a matter of policy, the board doesn't comment publicly on personnel matters, which.
But that's what it is. He showed favoritism with somebody.
No.
Well, that was when the Inquirer, I think the
Yeah,
Inquirer
yeah.
indicated that.
There's some criticism of his handling of a lieutenant who, overcoached the candidate. I think that's sort of where it's been described.
I'm not
So-
sure if he needs a letter like that to make him feel
Well,
good, or if we should.
if you want to, I think he would appreciate it. It's totally up to you.
You could write an email as a group,
As
you
a-
could write an email personally, you could
Yeah.
choose to do whatever you want. But we can't talk about personnel issues.
Yeah, so we can't really get into details, but it's,
No, we don't, I don't want the details, like,
Doesn't really sound like a health advisory matter.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
and I don't
people
even
could
know
write
what the issue
personal
is.
messages.
I'd like to
it
read
sounds
about it
like
a little
we don't
bit.
necessarily want to get involved in something that could be.
wasn't such a good idea, sorry.
No, it was
Thank
like
you,
picked from a good place.
I
I
understand.
think it's always nice
I
to
haven't read
thank
it.
people.
Well, thank you for listening.
You said there were copies of this?
Oh, well, there's a whole bunch of those inside the front door. I just grabbed it on the way in.
Okay.
Because inside the front door of here. Yeah, and I mean, I agree. I think objective statements of what he's done for us, because he has been a good partner for us, and maybe coming from us as individuals would be the right way to go. Because I also, don't want to make our committee seem divisive or, state as a group that we're staking any type of a position, which I don't think is our role, but
But let us stay on record that we appreciate.
yeah,
done for us.
absolutely. We definitely appreciate, and every time we've asked for information
He's
or
come.
for collaboration, he's been, immediately available, which we've certainly appreciated. So, yeah. All righty. Any other new business?
They're still not online.
Yeah, we don't see the, now, do we, we don't have to stick around and. Okay. Okay, all right, 'cause Michael was supposed to join, but I didn't see him either. Okay. All righty. So then we have no public comment and no response to the public comment. Anything else from anybody before we adjourn?
Our next meeting is November
November
14th.
14th, great. Thank
So
you.
that's
Thank
right
you.
after the
Thank you.
election.
Thank you.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Any comments you want to give us about security for the election in the township?
No.
Is
Just
there?
remember to vote. Yes,
Okay.
just remember to vote and be kind to your poll workers.
For their mental health.
Yes, exactly.
All right, are you adjourning the meeting?
I'm adjourning the meeting. Yep.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. How's that, Simon? We're going to do a little extra time. Sleep.
There's a bunch of them sitting down there.
In that test.
This one with the two